Welcome one and all to yet another Kings of War battle report. This time, Rhordia versus Orcs. And as you can see by this dot in the centre of the gaming table, it is the Dominate scenario. Now, this is a warm-up game for the upcoming 4-foot Snake GT. So we'll be using the tournament conditions from that event, which means that there is an hour per player rather than 50 minutes. It's 1,995 points, so you can't take 3 of the same war machines, monsters, heroes and such. And there's also a living legend character, 1 per side. You can choose from 4, and the one that I have gone with, and my opponent for this game has gone for the same one, and that is Colossal Nick, who is notable in that he has a damaging wind blast attack. He is a monster. He has limited close combat capabilities, and Iron Resolve, Headstrong, Strider, some other special rules, but they're not ridiculously overpowered, any of the living legends, despite their lofty title. So, let's go through my army list first of all, shall we? There are 2 of these games coming up, by the way, and you're probably going to see these when the tournament has already started, because I don't want to give away too much of the juicy stuff beforehand, in case any of the participants are watching this channel, which I'm sure they are, because everyone comes to me for the hardcore tactical tips. So, my list. We have the second breakfast formation for the League of Rhordia, which means halfling, spearlings, a horde and 2 regiments, and a master sergeant as well. So all those units end up with defense 4 and gain in snare as a result of the formation, which is nice. We've also got halfling archer horde. These are irregular now, so not quite as useful as they used to be, but just 1 horde of them. Then cavalry, we've got halfling knight regiment. Oh, by the way, the horde of spearlings has the brew of strength. So then into the large cavalry section we have a horde of honor guard, and they have the potion of the caterpillar. Then we've got some heroes. We've got an army standard bearer who's not a halfling, and he has the loot of insatiable darkness. Then we have a duke on winged Arales, just the regular, not the ancient duke, and he's got the healing brew. Then we've got a halfling sorcerer who is mounted and who also has the Zephyr crown, so his wind blast of 7 now does damage as well, which makes it exactly the same as the wind blast of Colossal Nick. So I think that's quite a good combo, having those 2 wind blasting heroes there, and both of them are able to do damage with their wind blast. And mounted, because being able to fire the wind blast over the top of my height 1 troops is very handy. Colossal Nick is also height 2, and wind blast of course doesn't suffer any negative modifiers for shooting at enemies in cover, so shooting over the top of your own troops is not an issue. And also being mounted means you can get into a nice position to use the wind blast, a bit more versatility there. Then there are 2 iron beasts in this list, and one of them represented by the crab, the other one represented by the whiskey golem there. Then there are 2 halfling volley guns. Obviously, with it being slightly below 2,000 points, I can only take 2 of those. So 2 volley guns in there, that is the list. On to my opponent's list, and you can see here that there is a chariot horde, and that is his Colossal Nick, just to the left of it there. Then he's got a giant, which you can see in between 1 regiment of axe and a horde of axe. I think all his regular orcs are axe. Then he's got a few heroes. He's got a war drum, he's got a standard bearer, he's got 2 god speakers, I think. And then there's some more axe there, and in front of them there are some orclings. There are more orclings over here. Now, one of these orclings, I believe they are Whip's playmates, I think they're called, and Whip is the goblin-y dude next to one of them. I think the playmates might actually be the ones over here, not next to Whip, oddly enough. And then there are some axe over here. I nearly said there are some more axe, but that is actually a name of a unit as well, so more space axe. And then there is the ancient Crudger here, or the Crudger on Ancient Slasher, I'm not sure what it's called, but it's the new extra juicy flyer that's on the 75mm base. And you can see that on the left flank for the League of Rhordia, I've got my Duke out there, So he's looking at the chariots, and you saw that the chariots were turned inward slightly towards the centre, so there's only Colossal Nick there to threaten if this guy decides to fly up there. Then in the middle, with it being Dominate, I don't want to just throw away unit strength willy-nilly into the enemy, so I'm putting the hard-to-kill stuff right in there, in the middle. So we've got one of the horde of spearlings and a regiment, and behind them the 2 iron beasts. So that big wall is going to be very difficult to chew through, especially because with the iron beasts being height 4, they can use their breath attack over the top of the height 1 infantry while the infantry are locked in a fight, which is not going to be that easy to kill them with their ensnare and their higher defence. So that means that the 2 Windblast heroes and the 2 Iron Beasts will be able to attack over the top of my infantry without any issues whatsoever, no negative modifiers. I think the Orc Godspeakers both have weakness, by the way, as a spell. You can see I've got the Halfling Knights on the left there. The Master Sergeant is next to the Horde. Now, one of the volley guns is positioned on top of the wall there, and I think that you're probably not allowed to deploy them there because they can't move over obstacles, so I'm just going to assume that you can't deploy war machines on obstacles. So we realised that after a couple of turns, so I just decided, well, you know what, I won't claim cover for it first of all, and then I also won't move it during the game, just to try and make that fair. Then you can see the Sorcerer down there at the bottom right, next to the horde of archers with the other volley gun in the difficult terrain, and there is another regiment of spearlings there, and out on this flank is the honour guard. So they're kind of to provide a bit of a deterrent, hopefully get the ancient slasher to charge into something and then use the honour guard against it, because their unit strength will be very useful potentially for the scenario with them being a horde. And just a bit of a front view with a bit of a shadowy look on them all. This is what my opponent sees when he looks across the table, trembling in terror. Oh, by the way, the model for Colossal Nick that I'm using here is actually a goblin. I use that as a war trombone usually, or Magua and the Jews, as he's known. So that's because my model that I'm building just for the tournament has not been finished at the time of this battle taking place. It is finished now, but when this battle was fought, he was still not ready, so that model is standing in case you're wondering. There's the Duke. So, turn 1. And I believe I won the roll-off and elected to let the Orcs go first. He doesn't really have any ranged attacks, so I thought, why not let him get a bit closer and give me potentially more shots with my 24-inch range weapons. It's a bit risky with it being a territory-based scenario, with Dominate letting the enemy possibly stake a claim to that area, but I think I've got the edge with the Wind Blast ability, and I think I might have high unit strength, I haven't calculated it. But I think with the Orclings he may have more actually, but I'm confident that they're not going to last long. Okay, so you can see he's been positioning to make sure, you can see the little arc of sight in front of one of my volley guns there. He didn't want to get certain units in the line of sight of that beastie. And over on the left flank, as I look at it, you can see the chariots are not bothered about the Duke at all. They're willingly exposed their flank to the flying Duke, which you could look at as a trap, or maybe he just doesn't see the Duke as a threat, and I have to weigh up whether it's worth sending him in there and losing the ability to harass people later on with him. Do I feel lucky, basically? Do I think I can take them out in one go or do a significant amount of damage on them? It would be doubling up to 10 attacks, so he would do some damage at least, and with a bit of luck he could even get them to a waver, perhaps. A slightly different angle on there. You can see that Whip is up into the forest, and he has a lightning bolt, I believe, which he manages to waver one of the volley guns with, which isn't fun. And turn 1 for Rhordia. So, the Honour Guard they're not carrying some Death Wish with them into battle, so they've just moved sideways behind the house, so the extra large winged slasher can't attack them. And you can see that the regiment of spearlings have moved up. They're just the bait, really. Anything that attacks them, the Honour Guard are likely to chew up. And then, as we move over to this side, you can see all the spearlings have moved up, the Iron Beasts up behind them. I'm not sending the cavalry far enough to get charged, because that would be bad. I want him to be charging my big ensnaring infantry blocks, and I want them to be charged in the front as well, so that they can actually use that ensnare. So I've made sure not to expose any flanks. And then I decide to go for it with the Duke, because I think, well, what can I really do with him? If I just try and harass, he's got Colossal Nick around there who could potentially charge him, so that would be annoying. So I decide to go for it in the flank, do 5 damage. He could die on the counter charge, but he's taken away their Thunderous Charge, so you never know. But I don't regret that too horribly at this stage. Then we have a volley gun, and some more shooting here from the Master Sergeant. They managed to put 9 damage onto the Orclings and waver them, so they're not causing that much of a blockage because the Orcs can just move through them, but it's still a little bit annoying. The archers turn round on the spot, so they're facing over to the right, and they put some damage onto the axe unit there. So I want them facing in this direction, because if there's very little for the Orcs in the middle, especially now that these Orclings are wavered, there's only really that axe unit there. So I'm concentrating on this flank. If I can clear that out, that would be a huge advantage for me, because then I could bring in things like the Honour Guard towards the middle around the end of the game. Turn 2 for the Orcs. So the big flying beastie has positioned himself behind the house, and the axe unit have moved up. I don't think they're in charge range of the spearlings. You can see that Whip is staying in the woods there. The axe regiment there have moved up past the centre point there, and over on this side the chariots do countercharge the Duke. He's not actually facing that way, but I turned him round just because they weren't really fitting against each other. And lots of Orc meat trudging diagonally across the table towards the middle now, but because he's got quite a lot of unit strength over on that side, and I'm confident that I can kill the bulk of the unit strength on the right flank as I look at it, because it's mainly in Orclings, so I think they're going to go down. On this side there's a decent chunk of unit strength as well, so if I can get the fight taking place kind of just to the left of the centre, then some of those units might struggle to make it into the middle, even if they survive through the game. We shall see though. Particularly the chariots. You can see how the battle lines are looking there. So I'm not going to be able to do any charges, I don't believe, anyway, with my central units, but I will be able to just move them forwards and invite the enemy onto me, which is the plan. And they're the little heroes Godspeakers behind the battle lines there, and another Godspeaker, and they actually put weakness onto the archers, I think. That's what I was using the blue tokens for. That's the weakness there. Then Whip decides to waver that volley gun again, which is mildly annoying, but it means he's going to have to shoot it again, otherwise it's going to have some fun later on. The Chariot Horde, with the assistance of Colossal Nick, do actually kill the Duke, but that chariot unit is heavily injured now. I think it was 5 damage, and he doesn't have any healing capabilities. So I'm quite satisfied with that, and there's how that corner looks so far. Then turn 2 for Rhordia. So I position these guys down here, inviting anyone that wants to charge those spearlings to come in and get hindered, and then the Honour Guard will come in and just mop them up. Now I'm regretting the positioning of the Honour Guard slightly here, because I think I could have turned them in such a way so that if the heavy big beastie there at the top were to try and fly behind them, they would still be able to see it. But I think I was caught up worrying about the tightness of the gap here, because it's very, very close whether they can actually fit between the regiment and the house. So I think I was more concerned about that, and wasn't thinking too much about the possibility of that flying beast using up another turn and moving around the back, which maybe I should have done. Over here you can see that there's some shooting attacks about to take place, and Mr. Iron Beast, Krabby Pants, as well as those units there, so that would include the 2 lots of 7 Wind Blast that does damage, and of course the Master Sergeant. All of that, plus the Iron Beast Breath Attack, kill off the Axe unit that were kind of in the centre of the table there, and the Orclings that were there as well. I think they were Whip's playmates, so that's 2 units down there in one go, I believe. Then this Iron Beast over here puts some damage onto that axe unit with the giant behind them as well. You can see he's got a lot of little heroes positioned behind some of his units, which is useful when you're facing wind blasts. It's going to stop them being pushed away. And you can see what the battle line's looking like. His centre, those 2 units in there, are basically gone, so there's very little that's threatening my kind of little shooting battery there. So I'm fairly confident at this stage that I can whittle them down. I haven't really got in position to execute the plan yet, where I'm going to be using my breath attacks to chip away at units that can't get into combat. So over on this side, you can see it's obviously bait, that regiment of spearlings there, but is he going to take it? We'll see. Turn 3, so he does position the Ancient Slasher behind, or to the flank of the Honour Guard, and double charges the axe and the Orclings into the spearlings there. In the middle, now he couldn't fit all of his units into combat that he wanted to here. There was always going to be somebody left out because he's got a lot of units there, there's not that much space. So he really wanted to triple charge the Horde, I think, but he wasn't able to, so the Giant is in there, and that base is just representing where he should have been standing, and one of the axe regiments. The Horde couldn't make it into anybody, there just wasn't enough space for them, and the Chariot Horde have gone into the Spearling regiment. Now I would probably expect both these units to survive this. And you can see the heroes have just positioned themselves around the back there. So a God Speaker weakens the Horde, counteracting the Brew of Strength, and this God Speaker weakens successfully the Iron Beast. Then Colossal Nick pushes my cavalry way back to the edge of the table, moving them out of charge range of anybody, which is annoying. He got really good rolls there on that wind blast, only did 1 damage though, so that's a small mercy. But they're not the fastest cavalry in the game, definitely, so they're not going to be in range to do anything now. Look at that, not much damage done to the Spearlings on this side, which is okay by me. And over here, you can see that he just does 5 damage to the Horde, which isn't anywhere near enough, and just 2 to the regiment. So they're going to survive, and I can commence with the strategy of survive and blast over the top. We'll see how that goes. So, turn 3 for the Halflings. Now, this is a bit of a dicey one here. Probably a mistake. Now, I'm not sure whether it was possible for me to double charge into the axe unit. Let me just see here. Okay, in this position here, there may well be enough space there to get a double charge on the axe unit with the Honour Guard and the Spearlings. Whether that would have helped matters at all, I am not sure, because the issue I'm going to have now, because I have charged 1 unit each, the Honour Guard killed the Orcs, obviously, and the Spearlings did not manage to kill the Orclings, which makes it a bit of a nightmare now, because the Honour Guard are likely to get recharged by the Orclings now, which is very unfortunate. There would have been potentially ways to avoid this. So, if I had anyone that could sit behind the Spearlings to prevent them bouncing back an inch, that would have taken away the gap required and forced the Orclings to bounce, which means that with a single pivot, possibly they wouldn't have been able to make contact with the Honour Guard. So that's one way of doing that. The other way would have just been to kill the Orclings. So as it is now, the Honour Guard are going to take the big flyer in the front and probably the Orclings in the rear, so not the best move there. Over here, the archers have turned back again. They're not too concerned with what's going on over there. They want to face the middle, and they've positioned themselves so that they can move forwards into the scoring area when they need to. So the Iron Beasts and all my various shooting attacks put quite a bit of damage. We've got 7 damage onto that regiment there, and a couple of damage on the Horde at the back as well. Because you can see my Horde countercharged into the Giant, and my regiment countercharged into the Chariots. So it looks a bit weird because the Horde has been split in half on top of the hill there because of the force of gravity. So the regiment went back into the Chariots first, then the Horde went into the Giant. And that means that his horde at the back is still going to be stuck. You'll notice it's moved further back, that's because it's been wind blasted as well. But it's not going to be able to get into combat next turn with anybody. For example, if I charged into the regiment of Axe with my horde, the giant would have still been alive, and potentially I could have killed that unit, but then the horde would have been able to come in and attack me, which I don't want. I want to just shoot the horde to death. I'd rather not fight it at all if I can help it. So we'll see if this plan pays off. So you can see kind of what I'm going for here, and it's working okay so far, just trying to hold up this big mess and slowly chip away at it with shooting attacks over the top. I've got my volley gun down there, which didn't get wavered last turn, so I think that one was finally able to shoot. We've got the Master Sergeant, we've got lots of Wind Blast, which damages, we've got the 2 breath attacks, and then when he does break through the lines there, I've got the 2 Iron Beasts who can actually fight as well, so they'll be able to go into combat and finish off anything that's wounded, hopefully. That's the plan. And you can also see that my Halfling Knights have given up on the left flank and they're moving into the middle now. Partially so they can score, and also because I didn't like the look of the honour guard situation up there. I was thinking that maybe there was a bit of trouble brewing with that situation, so I want to bring more units over here, because that flyer could potentially be an annoyance in a minute. Turn 4, so of course he does go for that double charge, 1 in the front, 1 in the rear on the honour guard, and they are probably not going to survive that. The Orclings will be hindered, but I don't think that's going to make too much of a difference. And here you can see that there's multi-charges galore. Into the horde have gone the regiment, the giant and the standard bearer. And again it looks weird, it looks like the regiment and half of the horde are stuck together, but they're not. They're just suffering the effects of gravity. The chariots have gone into the regiment there on the left. And the big Orc Axe horde has moved up off the difficult terrain, for now. And you can see that Colossal Nick has moved around the flank a bit. He's going to try and push the Iron Beast. And there's how it looks. Going to the Godspeaker now. And both Godspeakers successfully weaken. One of them weakens the Horde, the other weakens an Iron Beast, which is quite annoying. And then Colossal Nick nudges the Iron Beast an inch with his Wind Blast, but doesn't do any damage. And the Honour Guard, of course, get killed. Wow, wow, wow. And there's how that side of the battlefield looks. So, of course, my archers are in peril now. They're going to have to do something to avoid being flank charged. I think the slasher, even hindered, would probably charge their flank. So he manages to waver my horde, which isn't the worst result. The fact that they're alive is okay, but obviously it took a big nerve roll to do that. The giant's brutal certainly helped, but only 10 damage and becoming wavered. Not great, but not the worst either, because they're still holding up the enemy, which was their primary purpose here. The regiment do get killed by the chariot horde though, which is not fun. So, what am I going to do about this in turn 4 for the League of Rhordia? So the Master Sergeant kills the Orclings, but the fact that the Orclings were there meant that my regiment couldn't turn round to face the slasher, so they're going to have to get charged in the flank. I didn't want to charge the Orclings, so I wasn't confident that I was going to kill them with a hindered charge, so I'd rather just shoot them with the Master Sergeant, and that worked. Then the 2 Iron Beasts behind the wavered horde have turned round so they can direct their attacks, and also the big one, the golem, the Whiskey Golem model, Iron Beast, has put itself in a position where it will be able to charge next turn even if my horde survives another turn. So they use their breath attacks to waver the chariot horde, which is nice. And then all my other shooting, well, what does it do? It manages to get the horde up to 6 damage, which isn't that great, but also blasted it back a little bit as well, I think. Maybe not. Oh no, they didn't, because it might have blasted it back a tiny bit, but that Godspeaker's there, so they didn't go back too far. But I did manage to kill off the regiment of Axe that were in front of them as well with my shooting attacks. So that's nice. So the giant is in there. His horde may well be able to fight next turn now, though. And down here, you can see at the bottom there, my knights are positioned in such a way so that they're kind of a threat. If that slasher wanted to charge into, I think it's Rhordia, an ancient winged slasher, I think that's the name of it. If it wanted to charge into my archer horde in the flank, I'm not sure whether it has space actually. I think I may have prevented that by moving my regiment on the difficult terrain sideways a little bit. So I think I may have blocked that, but even if I haven't, I've got the knights in there who are a bit of a threat as well. But I believe I've got that blocked. So he could charge the volley gun and then get charged by the knights, or he could charge into the flank of my spearling regiment, which I'm more than happy to accept. Turn 5, so we've got triple charge, the standard bearer, the giant, and the orc axe horde into my horde of spearlings. The chariots can't do much because they're wavered. And you can see the God Speaker behind the war drum there as well. And then the slasher, the winged slasher, does go into the flank of that spearling unit. What do the God Speakers do? Well, they weaken the Iron Beast, the crabby one. And what does Colossal Nick do? Well, he nudges this Iron Beast backwards a little bit, getting up to 2 damage in the process. The horde is dead. Wow, wow, wow. So, not overly concerned. I felt they were going to die this turn once that horde became a combat option for him. And this regiment of spearlings goes down. This flyer is a problem. I don't have too much that can actually threaten it. The knights will have to catch it. They're not as fast. I've got my archers who would have to turn around and shoot it and suffer -1 to hit. I've got my volley guns who can't turn and shoot in the same turn, so they'd just be pivoting endlessly for the whole game. So it's a bit of a problem, but I do have a solution up my sleeve, which I will get to shortly. I've got both my Wind Blast characters alive, by the way, which when you look at this could be quite important. I think the centre of the table is towards the right-hand side of the Orc Axe Horde in the middle there. So I don't think the chariots are fully within... They don't have the majority of their unit within 12 of it at this stage. Okay, turn 5 for Rhordia. So you can see I turn the archers round this way, and you may think this is a curious move, positioning the knights so that they are facing away towards the centre and opening up their flank to the slasher. That's because I do not want that slasher to attack my archers at the moment. I've turned to present the front, which makes it less likely they will die, and I've turned the flank of the knights over there as bait because I want those knights to be charged. I don't want him to charge my archers and then be in a convenient position to be in the centre and still threatening everybody. So I've made it as nightmarish as possible for him to charge the archers. If he wants to charge into them, he can, but then he has to deal with potentially the charge of the knights, or at the very least a volley gun, the master sergeant, all that stuff is around there. So I'm inviting him to charge into the flank of the knights because they're much further away from the middle and he's only got 1 turn left after this, potentially. So we shall see whether he goes for that. You can see there's a lot of action going on in the top left there, which we will get to. So I've managed to waver his Orc Axe Horde. Got them up to 18 damage with lots of shooting from the volley guns, from 2 lots of Wind Blast that damages, and I think the Master Sergeant probably shot them as well. Over here, the Iron Beast, the one on the left there, killed off the Chariot Horde, and the Crabby Iron Beast charged into the Giant, and doesn't do that much, so that exposes the flank of the other Iron Beast, which I'm okay with because they're only 1 unit strength, and he's just taken out a Horde, so it was worth the exchange. So you can see how it's looking there. The closest volley gun to the camera here is not in charge range of the big slasher, as far as I can tell there. So I really want him to charge the flank of those knights. Even though you may think, well, you're just throwing away a couple of unit strength there. Yes, but he could still kill a unit and actually be in the middle, so I want to give him something juicy that keeps him out of the scoring zone if he wants to make a kill, which he can do. So it's kind of damage limitation. And on the left-hand side there, I am very confident that my unit strength is going to be sufficient. Because even if he kills my lower Iron Beast there, the one that's already damaged with flank charges. I've still got an Iron Beast, I've still got Colossal Nick there who scores, and I've got enough shooting there to finish off the Horde and still focus on the Giant, I think. So there's how it looks. You can see where the centre of the table is as well. So at the moment, the scoring units are that Horde, which is probably going to die. I think my archers are just in there at the moment, and there's a few monster characters and such around the bottom there. So turn 6 for the Orcs, and he does go into the Knights, which I think had made it so favourable that he kind of had to do it. There's a good chance he wouldn't have killed the archers with a front charge, and then he would have had to deal with lots of things pointing at him afterwards. So I can see why he went for it, but of course I set it up to make it as juicy as possible. Over here he does double charge the Giant and the Standard Bearer into my Iron Beast there. There's just enough room for it to be a double charge. The God Speakers, I don't think they weaken anybody. I think they fail to do it this time, for once. Then his Colossal Nick nudges my Iron Beast, I think, there, maybe a little bit. And the Giant and the Standard Bearer get my Iron Beast up to 10 damage, but only waver it, which is very, very good. So he kills the Knights with the flank charge with the Ancient Slasher, which is fine by me, because you'll see stage 2 of the plan in a minute. Okay, so there's how it's looking, going into my turn 6, and if it ends after turn 6, I am very confident that I am going to win, because I've got my Archer Horde, who are currently in there. I've got the 2 Iron Beasts. One of them's not going to get in there, one of them's going to die, but the Crab can certainly get in there, and Colossal Nick can get in there. And I'm very confident I can kill that War Drum, which is scoring points, and I can finish off the Horde of Orcs there. Turn 6 for Rhordia. So I actually move my Archer Horde further away from the centre. So that means that if this winged beastie wants to charge into their flank next turn, he would need an overrun of 6 to get the majority of his base within the scoring area. And if he doesn't charge the unit and just decides to fly over them into the middle, then that means he's just leaving 3 unit strength of mine untouched in the middle if we get to a turn 7. So that's the thinking behind this ploy here, because even if he charges into the flank, he may well kill them, but then he's not going to score. So that's the thinking in that. Okay, then I get my Krabby closer to the centre, and he actually charged into the... I can't remember whether the Crab charged into the Horde. I think he charged into the Horde and finished them off, the Krabby Iron Beast, and then all the shooting was targeted at the War Drum and finished that off, which is lots of unit strength taken out there. So, also I did some shooting with my Wind Blasty characters at the Giant, got him up to 11 damage. So he's not going to survive the game if we get turn 7. So that's how it looks at the end of turn 6 for both sides. So if it ends now, I believe I have 5 unit strength in the middle, and my opponent has possibly 1. Maybe that Giant is in there. But we do get a turn 7. So let's see, what's he going to do? Well, I think he really has to charge my Horde in the flank with his Ancient Slasher, which means the Ancient Slasher probably is not going to score any points in the middle for him, but he's going to deprive me of 3. His Giant can finish off my Iron Beast there, and then bounce backwards and get within the scoring area. But then on my final turn, I should be able to kill the Giant with all the shooting I've got around here. So yeah, I'm very confident still at this stage that I'm going to win. Okay, what does he do? Well, the Giant does go back into the Iron Beast. He's moved Colossal Nick into the middle to give him extra points in there. Rather than trying to kill anything with his Wind Blast, he just moved him at the double to get him into the middle, and moved the God Speakers out of the way a little bit, I think. So he does kill the Iron Beast, and then bounces back enough so that Giant is scoring right now. And of course, the Ancient Slasher does go into the flank of the Halfling Archers and does kill them, does tons of damage, but he does not reach the scoring area. So I don't have to worry about him with my final turn now. So, my Wind Blasty characters just target the Giant, and kill him, and even if they hadn't killed him, they successfully pushed him out of the scoring area anyway. So it would have still been a win for me, and before I did that, I made sure to position my Colossal Nick to make sure that he and the Crab Iron Beast were both within the scoring zone, the majority of the base, and that means that I take the scenario 2-1. So if I'd rolled really terribly and failed to push the giant out of the zone, and also failed to kill it during this turn, then that would have been a disaster, and that would have meant it was a draw. But the giant is dead. The Colossal Nick survived for both sides, and the Iron Beast, the Crabby Iron Beast, survived to score there. So it's a win for the League of Rhordia. Certain units had to lay down their lives a lot. It felt a lot like a game of chess at points during that. Because in chess, you know exactly when you position a unit somewhere, you know that your opponent can just choose to kill it. And there's really no random element to it at all. So I was putting units in positions where I pretty much knew they would be killed, but I think it was possibly the best thing for the scenario. There were certain times I didn't want to push units forward because they could have been charged by something other than the winged slasher. This was before I knew that I was going to waver the big axe horde, for instance. So I had to play it quite safe down there, sacrificing the units to keep the slasher. The last thing you want in the last couple of turns is having a big nasty flyer somewhere where he's scoring and he can also go and just chew on things, chew through units and still be in a scoring position. That's the dream for a flyer. The last couple of turns, just fly in there and kill something and then score. So I think, did I play it well? Was there something better I could have done there? If anyone has any thoughts on that, then let me know. I definitely could have played the Honor Guard better. But I think overall, I think I sacrificed units at the right time, obviously, because it led to a win. And another reason I was saying it felt a bit like chess, because there are times in chess where you have an advantage in numbers, but you'll willingly just throw away multiple strong pieces, knowing that the position it lands you in is favourable at the end. Even you may reduce the size of your numbers advantage, but you have a positioning advantage at the end. And I think that's kind of what I did here. Whether it worked 100%, I'm sure you can let me know in the comments. And there is another game coming up after this. This will probably go up on the Saturday, I think, the first day of the 4-Foot Snake GT that this was a practice for. The second practice game I'll probably put up on the Sunday morning, and then the tournament report will most likely come on the Monday. So you'll be seeing a lot of this army over the next few days. And hopefully people won't be able to get too much of a tactical insight from this if they're going to be playing against me on the Sunday, but you never know. I think it's worth the risk though. I'm probably not going to change the list too drastically. I don't change it at all for the next game because I quite liked how it worked here. I like the ability that I have to shoot over my own Height 1 troops and not have any hindrance on that shooting with the 2 lots of Wind Blast that damages and the Iron Beasts with their breath attack, which isn't the most potent weapon in the world, but if you're just playing kind of a delaying game, if it's a bit of a war of attrition, once they do chew through the infantry, the Iron Beasts are then really difficult to take down as well with defense 6. So I think it's a really tough to shift block that's actually dishing out damage if there are multiple units, especially the way the enemy army was composed here, the way they were positioned. It was kind of a bit of a traffic jam. I wanted to keep them into as narrow a frontage, if you will, as possible, because I was able to shoot over the ensuing combat, and my opponent was only able to do that with the weakness spell, which isn't going to kill anybody. So, don't forget to check out all the links in the description. If you like the content on this channel, don't forget to throw your life savings at me monthly via Patreon. And I will catch you in the next one, which will be very, very soon. So, ta-ta for now.